Everyone warned me I'd be lonely after Richard died. 15 years later, I'm still alone, and I have never been lonely. That sentence confuses people. Many of us were taught that living alone after a certain age is something to pity or fix, that if you're not surrounded by family every Sunday, something went wrong. My name is Louise. I'm 90. I used to believe being alone meant something was missing, but over time I realized being alone and being lonely are not the same thing, and confusing the two has cost too many women their peace. If you've ever been told you're too alone, or if you live by yourself and quietly wonder whether you're doing this wrong, this is for you. I want to share the 5 things that have kept me whole. Before we start, are you watching because you live alone or because you're worried about someone who does? Comment 1 if it's you. Comment 0 if it's someone you love. The first thing I want to tell you is this. Being alone and being lonely are not the same thing. I know that sounds obvious when you hear it said out loud, but I promise you, most of us have spent our whole lives confusing the two, and that confusion is what's making so many women my age miserable when they don't have to be. Loneliness is not about distance, it's about connection. You can be surrounded by 100 people and feel completely invisible. You can live in a house with 6 other family members and cry quietly in your bedroom because nobody actually sees you. And you can live alone in a small apartment, talk to your daughter for 20 minutes on a Sunday afternoon, and feel full for the rest of the week. Let me tell you about someone I know. Her name is Barbara, and she moved in with her son and his family when she turned 78. The doctor said it wasn't safe for her to be alone anymore. Everyone told her she was lucky. Grandchildren running around, a warm kitchen, Sunday dinners. She nodded and smiled because that's what you're supposed to do. But a year in, she told me something I'll never forget. She said, "Catherine, I have never in my life been this lonely. There are 6 people in this house. None of them know what I'm thinking." That's the thing nobody warns you about. You can be the quiet woman in the corner of a crowded room, the grandmother everyone loves but nobody really talks to, the mother-in-law who's tolerated but not asked for an opinion. And loneliness will sit on your chest every single night. The walls don't protect you from it. The people don't cure it. Now compare that to my Sunday afternoons. I live alone. I don't see anyone most days. But every Sunday at 2 o'clock, my daughter calls me. We talk for 20 minutes, sometimes 30. She tells me about her week. I tell her about the birds in the yard. We laugh about small things. And when I hang up, I feel seen. I feel known. And that one phone call carries me through the rest of the week. So here's the question I want you to stop asking yourself. Stop asking, am I alone too much? That's the wrong question. It's the question the world trained us to ask, and it leads us nowhere. Here's the right question. Ask yourself, am I actually connected to anyone? Does anyone in my life really see me? Because if the answer is yes, even if it's just one person, even if it's just a 20-minute phone call on Sundays, you are not lonely. You are alone. And those are different. Loneliness is not about distance. It's about connection. Distance you can live with. Disconnection slowly kills you. Once I finally understood that difference, something shifted. I stopped apologizing for the quiet of my house. I stopped pretending I needed more visitors than I actually wanted. And I started noticing how much peace had been waiting for me the whole time. The second thing I've learned is this. When you live alone, you have to build your own daily routine. It sounds small. It isn't. When you live with another person, the day has its own rhythm. Someone gets up. someone makes coffee, someone asks what you want for dinner. The day builds itself around another human being, and you move through it without thinking. That's a gift, and most of us don't realize it until we lose it. When you live alone, nobody builds that rhythm for you. Nobody knocks on your door. Nobody asks what you want for dinner. And that sounds like freedom until you've lived it for a few months and realize how quickly the days start to blur together when there's no structure at all. So I built one. I wake up at 7 every morning. I make a pot of tea while the kettle sings. I sit in the chair by the window and watch the birds in the yard for 20 minutes before I do anything else. Then I read the paper. Then I eat breakfast. Then the day actually starts. I know how that sounds. It sounds boring. It sounds like the kind of routine people put in movies when they want to show that someone has given up on life. But let me tell you something. Boring is not the enemy at 90. Chaos is. Let me tell you about someone I know, a woman named Eleanor who called me about 2 years after her husband died. She said, "Catherine, I don't know what's wrong with me. I sleep until 11. I skip breakfast. I forget what day it is. I cry for no reason at 3 in the afternoon." I asked her one question. "What does the first hour of your day look like?" She said, "It doesn't look like anything. I just wake up and check my phone." That was the whole problem right there. She had no anchor. Her days had become a pile of hours with nothing holding them in place. Here's what I told her. You don't have to have a full schedule. You don't need to be busy. You just need 1 or 2 small things that happen at the same time every single day. 1 morning ritual, 1 afternoon ritual, 2 small anchors. That's all. Tea at 7, the paper before breakfast, a walk after lunch. Pick anything, but pick the same anything every day. And here's something I want you to really hear. When Richard was alive, I ate dinner at 5:30 every night because that's when he got hungry. I did that for 47 years. After he passed, I kept eating at 5:30 for about 6 months out of pure habit. Then one day I realized something. I'm not actually hungry at 5:30. I'm hungry at 7. So I moved dinner to 7. And the strangest thing happened. That wasn't loneliness I was feeling. That was freedom I didn't know I had been waiting for. Your routine doesn't have to honor anyone else anymore. It only has to honor you. That's not selfish. That is what the second half of life is actually for. Quick check-in before we go on. Do you have a morning routine that actually feels like yours, not something left over from someone else's life? Comment 1 if yes. Comment 0 if you've lost it and want to rebuild it. The third thing I want to tell you is this. You need something in your life that depends on you. Something that needs you to get out of bed in the morning, even on the days you don't want to. When you spend most of your life taking care of other people, a husband, children, parents, sometimes all of them at once, you don't realize how much of your motivation was coming from the outside. Someone needed breakfast. Someone needed a ride. Someone needed you to remember a birthday, a doctor's appointment, a permission slip. And then one day, all of that stops. The children are grown. The husband is gone. Nobody needs anything from you at 7 in the morning. And you find yourself lying in bed at 9, then 10, then 11, thinking, what exactly am I getting up for? That is a dangerous question to answer alone. You need something in your house that answers it for you. For me, it is a cat named Mildred. She is 11 years old. She has opinions about everything, and she is absolutely certain that breakfast is served at 7:15 sharp. If I am 1 minute late, she sits on my chest and stares at me until I give up and get out of bed. She does not care that I am 90. She does not care that my knees hurt. She does not care that it's raining. She is hungry, and she has made it my problem. And let me tell you something. On the hardest mornings, the ones where the grief comes back without warning, Mildred is the reason I stand up, not because I choose to, because she decides for me. Let me tell you about someone I know. A woman named Ruth, 78 years old, widowed 3 years ago. She called me the summer after her husband died and said she couldn't get through the afternoons. I told her to plant tomatoes, just 4 plants, that's all. She thought I was joking, but she did it. And those 4 tomato plants saved her first summer, because tomatoes don't care that you're sad. Tomatoes need water. They need you to check on them. They need you to notice when something's wrong. And when the first one ripened, she called me crying and said, "Catherine, I grew this. I kept something alive." That's the point. You don't need a big thing. You don't need 10 things. You need one small thing that looks at you every morning and says, "Show up today." If you can't have a pet, feed the birds. Hang a feeder outside your kitchen window and keep a little notebook. I do this, by the way, and write down every new bird you see. I have cardinals, blue jays, finches, mourning doves. I have names for some of them. I know which one bullies the others at the feeder. It sounds silly. It is not silly. It is attention. It is care. It is a reason to look out the window with purpose, or grow 1 pot of basil, or water a single orchid, or adopt the oldest cat at the shelter that nobody else wants. You don't need a lot of things that need you. You need one. Just one. And on the mornings you don't want to show up for yourself, you will show up for that one thing. And showing up for that one thing, that is how you keep showing up for your own life. The 4th thing I've learned is that at our age, you have to be very, very picky about the people you let into your days. Social energy is a currency. When you're 25, you have a full wallet and you spend it on everyone: coworkers, neighbors, strangers, acquaintances, the mother of your child's friend. You say yes to every invitation. You attend every baby shower. You make small talk in every grocery store aisle. It doesn't cost you much back then, so you don't even think about it. When you're 90, you're working with a much smaller wallet. And every social interaction, even a pleasant one, costs something. A coffee with an acquaintance who drains you leaves you tired for 2 days. A Sunday dinner where you have to perform, smile, listen, nod, hold your tongue, can wipe out a whole week of peace. So I made a decision years ago. I stopped trying to keep up with 20 people, and I invested everything in 3. Let me tell you about my 3. Margaret, I have known for 60 years. We met at church when we were both young mothers. She knows the version of me that existed before I became anyone's wife, anyone's mother, anyone's grandmother. She knows who I was, and when I'm with her, I don't have to perform any of those roles. Doris, I met at book club 12 years ago. She is sharp, she is funny, and she will argue with me about a novel for 3 hours without getting tired. She keeps my mind alive. And Helen, my neighbor, 84 years old, also lives alone. Helen and I don't see each other every day, but we wave through the kitchen window every morning, and twice a week we have tea. She is the one person who truly understands what my days look like, because her days look the same. 3 people. That is it. And those 3 are worth more than 20 acquaintances I'd have to put on a show for every single time. Here's what we were raised to believe: that you should never say no to a family gathering, that you should always show up, that a good woman smiles through every lunch, every dinner, every visit, no matter how tired she is underneath. We were taught that being tired was selfish, and that being honest about it was worse. Well, I'll say it out loud so you don't have to. You've earned the right to be tired. You've earned the right to stay home. You've earned the right to say, Not this week. I don't have it in me. And here's the question I want you to ask yourself about every person in your life. Not their job, not their title, not how long you've known them. Just this. When I get off the phone with this person or close the door behind them, do I feel full or do I feel empty? Because at our age, people either fill you up or they drain you. There is no neutral anymore. Being picky about people isn't snobbery at 90. It is survival. You do not owe anyone access to your last good years. You owe them honesty, and you owe yourself peace. Everyone else can earn their seat at your table, or they can go sit at someone else's. The fifth thing I want to tell you is the hardest one. You have to actually love yourself, and I don't mean that in the way the greeting cards mean it. I mean it in a way that took me decades to understand. When you live alone, you are stuck with yourself 24 hours a day. There is no husband to distract you, no children asking for things, no colleagues to make small talk with. It is just you and the woman in the mirror, and if you don't like her, nobody can save you. Not a therapist, not a trip, not a new hobby, not even a loving family. You have to make peace with the woman you've been living with your whole life, and that is harder than anyone admits. I spent too many years thinking I was too quiet, too boring, too homebound. My husband was the social one, my sister was the funny one, my daughter was the brave one, and I was the one at home, making dinner, ironing shirts, nodding in the corner at parties I didn't really want to attend. For most of my life, I thought there was something wrong with me because I didn't shine the way those other people did. It took me until my 70s to understand something. I was not wrong about who I was. I was wrong about thinking there was something wrong with it. Let me tell you about someone I know. A woman named Lillian, 85 years old. She spent her whole life apologizing for being what she called dry. She wasn't funny at parties. She didn't tell good stories. She preferred reading to socializing, quiet dinners to big gatherings. Her husband used to tease her that she should try to be more fun. Her sister used to say she was wasting her life at home. For 60 years, Lillian believed them. She kept trying to be brighter, louder, more interesting, and she kept failing because she was trying to be someone she wasn't. And then one day, at 85, she said to me very quietly, "Catherine, I'm an introvert. I always was, and it's okay." That was the whole sentence. And she said she had spent 60 years waiting for permission to say it. I don't want you to wait that long. We were the generation raised to be agreeable, to be useful, to never take up too much space, to make sure everyone else at the table was comfortable before we even sat down. And somewhere along the way, a lot of us lost track of who we actually were underneath all that performing. Here is the truth. You are allowed to like your own company. You are allowed to prefer a quiet evening over a loud one. You are allowed to be the woman who reads instead of the woman who goes out. You are allowed to stop apologizing for being exactly who you have always been. Self-love isn't a slogan at 90. It is not a bubble bath or a trip to the spa. It is the roommate you are stuck with for the rest of your life, and you have two choices. You can spend your last years fighting her, resenting her, wishing she were someone else, or you can finally make peace with her. I chose peace. It took me 80-something years, but I got there. You do not have to take that long. I miss Richard every single day. 15 years, and the empty chair at the dinner table is still empty. I don't set a place for him anymore, but I still look at that chair sometimes, right before I sit down, and I think about him. I think about the way he used to hum while he read the paper. I think about how he always stole the last piece of toast. I think about how he would tell me, if he could see me now, that he is glad I figured out dinner at 7 is better than dinner at 5:30. But here's what I need you to hear. Missing someone is not loneliness. Missing someone is love with nowhere to land right now. And those two things feel similar, but they are not the same. One is a wound that needs to be healed. The other is a wound that only needs to be honored. You don't heal grief by getting rid of it. You heal it by making space for it alongside the rest of your good life. So if you are living alone tonight, I want you to ask yourself a very honest question. Are you suffering because you are truly lonely? Because nobody in your life actually sees you and you've lost your connection to every person you love? Or are you suffering because you think you're supposed to be lonely, because the world keeps telling you a woman your age shouldn't be alone, shouldn't be quiet, shouldn't be content at home? Because those two problems need two completely different answers. The first one needs connection. Find one person, call them, let them see you. You do not need 20, you need one. The second one needs permission. Permission to live a quieter life than the world keeps demanding from you. Permission to stop explaining yourself. Permission to close the front door, sit in your chair, and simply exist without anyone needing anything from you. That permission is not going to come from your children. It is not going to come from your doctor. It is not going to come from the neighbors. It has to come from you. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up at 7. Mildred will complain at 7:15 because she always does. I'll make tea. I'll watch the birds. I'll miss Richard for a quiet minute in the chair by the window. And then I will be completely, totally fine, because being alone is not the problem. Believing you shouldn't be, that is the problem. If you'd like to sit with me again, I'll be here, still learning, still protecting my peace, still choosing quiet over noise, and finding it's the best choice I ever made. Thank you for spending this hour with me. And if something I said tonight helped, a quiet like and subscribe is how I get to keep coming back. One last question before you go. After these 5 things, what's your honest truth? Comment 1 if you live alone and you've finally made peace with it. Comment 0 if you are still learning how. I read every single one.